Hello, this is John Sullins coming to you from Sonoma State University and the Center for Ethics, Law, and Society. And we are today going to be talking a little bit about a topic called artificial phronesis and the kind of a new idea and one that I think will be interesting. This is a practice session for the ESOF panel that we'll be doing in Trieste, and hopefully everything will go well. So artificial phronesis is a proposed AI research framework that explores ethical competencies in artificial moral agency, autonomous machines, intelligent systems, general intelligent systems. Phronesis is a philosophical term that refers to the skilled or practical reasoning that helps an agent, usually a human agent, make proper and effective reasoning around ethical and moral issues. It's often translated from the Greek. Phronesis is translated as practical wisdom. There might be some issues with that, but it's good enough for what we're trying to do. Artificial phronesis claims that phronesis, or this skill in practical wisdom, plays a primary role in high-level moral reasoning. And then it asks this question whether or not this is something that we can achieve at least a functional equivalence to in machines, robots, artificial intelligences, that sort of thing. We use the terms artificial impact agents, or ethical impact agents, I'm sorry. These are like every piece of technology that you see around you now, especially smart technologies, are this. They have ethical impacts, but they don't reason about those impacts. They aren't aware that those impacts occurred. Even sometimes the programmers are unaware that the particular ethical impacts are occurring, or they think that they've programmed something other than what they've actually programmed. Think of what's happening with algorithmic justice and problems around technologies in social networking situations, the destruction of democracy that they may be entailing. None of this was necessarily intended by the programmers, but nonetheless, these impacts happen. Artificial ethical agents, on the other hand, would be artificial intelligence or robotics systems that are programmed to try to fit within a particular ethical framework. So think of a autonomous weapon system that tries to follow some, very specific rules of war or rules of engagement. That would be an artificial ethical agent. Artificial moral agents are, at this stage, still kind of fanciful to think about. These would be machines that have the capacity to reason through moral systems in similar ways to humans, or even better. So they don't exist, and we don't even really know how we might go about starting to program something like that. But certainly the impact agents exist already, and the artificial ethical agents are coming to be as programmers start to realize the importance of ethical frameworks and how their systems have to fit within those things. So what's at stake with when it comes to ethical impact agents? Today's robots, there are some things that are at stake, but they tend to be low autonomy. They certainly have zero to no ethical sensitivity. As we go towards the top right of this diagram comes from the book Moral Machines, and Wallach and Allen, their book. I've added the red and the blue to this diagram to try to use it to explain my point. I see these various levels as the borderlines between impact agents, artificial ethical agents, and fully uh, um, artificial moral agents. And I agree with the authors that where our current technologies are charting us is we're going up the autonomy scale as fast as possible and as high as possible, but we've spent almost no effort trying to develop ethical sensitivity. Uh, Without it, we won't be reaching artificial ethical agents or artificial moral agents. What we will reach, however, is up there in the left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner, and that is machines that are very highly autonomous, but don't know what they're doing and have no way of knowing what they're doing, and we have no way of predicting what they're going to be doing. So this is a dangerous quadrant to be in. I think of a fully autonomous nuclear missile or something like that. All kinds of terrible things could happen in that kind of a scenario. So given that artificial agents are part of the technosocial relationships that we're building in creating this future that we're trying to create, and these machines are going to be autonomous, semi-autonomous, flip between the two, then it follows that these machines have to have some kind of behavior of their own, some virtuous behavior that that will create a world where we can interact with them in a in a in a way that's going to be comfortable for us. And so this is going to require that these machines have some skill in artificial phronesis or artificial practical wisdom, whatever word you choose to use. So as we build technologies with an eye towards finding this better society that we want to live in, we're required to use our own practical wisdom in determining, is that society really better or desirable given the time and material and effort and money that we put into these technologies? Did we spend all this, decades building social networking technology that then destroyed democracy that we spent a few centuries prior trying to build? What we build displays what we believe to be best about the world, or at least the most profitable things we think are involved in the world. And to do this with skill and not just crass materialism requires virtue, and it requires the expression of our own practical wisdom. And I'm arguing here that to take this even further, our machines are going to have to reflect this as well. So this theory is agnostic as to whether or not machines will have the, is artificial intelligence up to the task of creating AMAs? I don't know. That's not something we can determine a priori. It's just an empirical question. One thing I do know is that philosopher Charles S. argues that there's no general rule, procedure, algorithm for discerning which values, principles, norms, approaches apply in any particular given situation. Instead, we and any machine we build is going to have to determine what is relevant in the first place in any given situation, and then proceed from that to build inferences and conclusions about what actions are actually appropriate. So that's a tall order. It's hard for us. It's going to be even harder for our machines. Artificial phronesis is more than just machine ethics. So it's an attempt to try to go beyond artificial ethical agents and move into that realm of artificial moral agents. The virtue, Shannon Valor, the philosopher, argues that the virtue of practical wisdom or phronesis encompasses considerations of universal rationality, as well as considerations of irreducible, contextual, embodied, relational, and emotional nature. These are considerations that rule-based systems such as Kant's and others have regarded as irrelevant to morality. In this tradition of thought, we feel that far from being able to just be removed from the system, they are actually central to the system. So we get this from classical ethics, classical virtue ethics in particular. But of course, we don't want to be limited to that. So even though we might be initially inspired by Aristotle. We know Aristotle is not the end of the story, just the beginning. And so we're not trying to derive some full account of phronesis in a virtue ethics kind of sense. We're also not trying to develop a full account of phronesis at the neurological level, like how is it that humans are able to pull off this trick? That might have some influence to our systems, but it's not necessary. We can instead look at what I'm calling here artificial phronesis, which is functionally equivalent. It has nothing, may have nothing to do with the how it works in humans, just as long as we get to the same place. Also, we're not trying to build machines of loving grace, right? Morally perfect machine angels of some sort. Not going to be possible. It's not really the goal of artificial phronesis. We're just trying to build machines that can do a little bit better than the machines that we currently see. And I think that's possible because the machines we currently see spend zero energy or have zero capacity even to try to make these kinds of decisions. So artificial phronesis is the ultimate goal of artificial moral agents. It sets a pretty high bar at that artificial moral agent level, probably going to require some level of consciousness in the machine to make adequate moral judgments at that level. We also, but remember, these machines can fall way short of that goal as long as they're not up in that left-hand corner of that graph. As long as they're pushing more towards the center, they're going to be better, they're going to be less dangerous. So let's talk about some of those intermediary goals, not the far goal of our artificial moral agency. But we're dealing with technologies that, again, autonomous, semi-autonomous, flip between the two. The effects of these kind of systems, as I've argued earlier, hard to predict. They recur in rapidly changing environments that the programmers may not even have conceived of when they made the machine. So we have to give these machines some rudimentary ability to make their own judgments in real time, in real situations. Otherwise, we're going to loose upon the world AI agents that can impact the world in very unethical ways. We're going to have to keep them really boxed up so that they don't cause problems, or if we let them out of the box, they're guaranteed to cause problems. So we don't have to create machines that recapitulate every single human virtue. We can start with just some pretty simple ones that are virtues that we want out of our systems anyway. We want security, we want integrity out of the systems, we want the systems to be accessible to the proper users at the proper time, and we want to, I think we should also add digital trust. We should trust the results of these systems. We're in a bad situation as a user. You can't know exactly what into programming Alexa, but you've got Alexa in your house, and you have to be able to trust the things that Alexa tells you. Is Alexa giving you fake news? Has Alexa been hacked by Russian anti-democratic hackers? How are you going to know? So digital trust is a huge issue. So here's an example case. You can imagine a young child interacting with a computer or especially with Alexa. And there's been a famous case you can look up on YouTube of a child asking Alexa to sing it a children's song, and then it starts playing some pornography. And the parents have to rip Alexa out of the wall. How can a company like Amazon avoid the really embarrassing failures like that? Well, it's going to need something like artificial phronesis, so that the system, before it decides what it's going to show to the user, makes some it has information. They can judge who the user is. It can listen to the voice and tell roughly what age the person is that's interacting with it, and then it can use even just limited semantic capabilities to provide back information that's secure, accessible, has integrity, and is trustworthy. we have to have this, right? We're already running up against a world where these ethical impact agents are creating ethical impacts willy-nilly. We need to move to artificial ethical agents that can reason through the situations, at least simple situations, and avoid these embarrassing results. So this is a sketch. Sorry for the quality of the screen capture. It didn't blow up very well in PowerPoint, but this is a sketch of a system that hopefully I'll be able to start working with some roboticists during a upcoming sabbatical. Antonio Cella has invited me to come and work with him, so hopefully that will work out and COVID won't prevent it, and we'll be able to start messing around with systems like this and see what we can build. So the idea here is the machine, it has some command or some search asked of it, and then it will go through this period where it does an ethical analysis of that ask, and accesses some databases or just collections of ethically relevant case studies, looks at the outcomes of those, and then breaks apart its query into its component parts, recombines that in a new way that's going to serve the user's wants, and also produce a result that the machine is somewhat confident is ethical, or at least fits within its ethical guidelines, and then spit that result back out to the user. Hopefully we can get one that will at least, let's just set a low bar. Can we get one that will not present pornography to a small child? That's a win, right? So let's see if we can get that done. All right, so looking forward to questions on this, and that's all I have for now.